Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Rakuten Technology Conference 2014. Now, we are going to start the next session, Lesson Learned from Ruby, from Mr. Yukihiro Matsumoto. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Konnichiwa. はい、顔写真が出てますね。はい、すみません。大事なことは日本語で。ようこそ。I'm going to talk about English hereafter. So, I'm going to talk about the lessons learned from Ruby, a Ruby experience. So, I started the Ruby project in 1993. So, this is Ruby's 21st year of development. So 21 years, it's quite wrong. So, very few people working on the software project that lasts 21 years. So this is quite exceptional. So I think from my rare experience, so I can tell you about the lessons I learned in the last 2 decades. So in 1993, do you know what did happen in Japanese economy? So it was right after the crash of the bubble economy in Japan. So we were in the very deep depression. So very, very bad economy. So I was working as a programmer in a software company in Japan. So I was making some kind of the internal software for engineers working for that company. So some better engineers are gathered in the specialized project to invest for the future. So because under the bubble economy, we had tons of money for the company. So the company executives decided to invest in the tools to change their life, the engineer's life. So, but after the bubble economy, so the bubble economy crashed. So the economy goes bad, business was gone bad. So they canceled our project. So that unfortunately, too bad. So they canceled our project. The team members, very good programmers, including myself, were scattered together as the companies. So the one member to this project, that project, to earn money. So, but we already developed and released some tools to the engineers. So somebody got to maintain these tools. So most of the team members were scattered to the whole among the company, but some, I don't remember the exact number, but 2 or 3 engineers were left behind to maintain the software. So myself is one of them. So I was a maintenance mode. So I was waiting a phone ring that for some kind of complaint. So your software don't work pretty well. So then I answered to the call. So okay, I got it. So reboot your computer. Thank you. So that was my job back then. So it was so boring. So I had a ton of spare time. I had a computer on my desktop, Unix workstation on my desk, and it was kind of abandoned project. So no one was looking after me. So I was assigned to a manager, but he was also assigned to the other money-making project. So he was busy working on that project. So we were virtually ignored, virtually non-existent from business line. So I had plenty of time. So fortunately, back then, 20 years ago, very few people were very eager to seek compliance. So I was kind of free. So I started something as a skunk work. So, myself is the programming language geek for a long time. When I was in high school, my teenage was devoted to programming, to gain the knowledge of programming, especially for programming languages. So I started programming in BASIC, kind of crappy programming language. And then, unlike the modern Visual Basic or something, so the old BASIC was very primitive. So they only have the numbers, the line numbers. So they don't have functions. They only have, say, the subroutines that invoked by the line number or something like that. So there was no data structure. So it was kind of crap. But I didn't realize the BASIC was crap because I only knew BASIC. So I was pretty much excited about BASIC. So I can control computer. But, after that, so after finding the computer science literature, like the introduction to the Pascal language or something, so I learned Pascal through books because I didn't have the computer to run Pascal. But, after learning Pascal, so there was quite some programming language out there. So there was a Lisp, Smalltalk, Pascal, or some other programming language, which is far superior than my old friend, BASIC. So I found out there was so many programming language out there, and that each programming language has its own trade-off and a design policy, design philosophy, and that attracted me a lot. So somehow, the programming language penetrated my mind. So I became a programming language geek. So there was so many programming language out there. So and each programming language has its designer. So that each designer had some kind of the plan, philosophy, mind, or something to design to what kind of programming language that to be. So why not me? So as a high school student, I decided to be. I wanted to be a language designer, but back then I didn't have any personal computer. There was no BASIC. There was no Windows. There was no Mac. There was no MS-DOS back then. We only have the computer that runs BASIC. So it is quite difficult to write a compiler or interpreter for a new language. So, and I have very little knowledge about computer science, especially to write software about the programming language. So I took a notebook, and write down a program in my own programming language without implementing any lines of code. So unfortunately, I lost that notebook. It could be some kind of historical record or something, but unfortunately, I lost. Anyway, so that's the motivation behind my skunk work. So I started after graduating university, majoring in computer science, and after working as a professional programmer for 2 years, then I gained the knowledge and the skills and to write software and good enough to write interpreter, the language processor. So I started some small programming language gradually became into Ruby. So then I continued to working on Ruby for the last 2 decades. So, and then virtually it took all over the world. So all the programmers all over the world, all the continents, except for the Antarctica, and using Ruby. So there were some great Ruby conferences in many places, many countries. Like we had Ruby conference in Japan, Ruby conference in the United States, Ruby conference in Brazil, Argentina, or in many countries in Europe, and even in China, Singapore, or many countries. Of course, I miss many countries, but don't blame me. That's too many. Okay, so the lesson one that I learned from Ruby is this: don't ask for permission, beg for forgiveness. So if I asked my boss okay, I have a plan to create my own programming language in business time. So is that okay? So I'm very, very sure he would say no. If I were a boss, so a member of my team asked me for the permission to create his own programming language in his business hours. So I would say no. So permission is a very interesting obstacle for innovation. So you can permit only when you understand. So you can say yes. So when you are sure to succeed. I mean, so but the most innovation has risked the chance to fail. So in that case, especially in the business field, you have to say no to innovation. It's kind of innovator's dilemma. So it's kind of limit by asking permission. So if you want permission from your boss, so you have to persuade your boss about your plan. So you have to maybe compromise your plan to persuade your boss. That would hinder innovation. So that's kind of the innovator's dilemma. So in a business field, so you have to when you have to persuade your boss, your executive, your manager, so you have to compromise. But that compromise itself is an obstacle to succeed. So innovation is personal matter. So you need the freedom to innovate. So, but you cannot just ask freedom to your boss. No. So don't ask a permission at first hand. And then if the boss finds it your job, okay, just ask for forgiveness. Okay, I'm sorry. And then if your project succeeded, okay, as an open source, people all over the world using your product, so then show the result to your boss. And he would say yes after you succeeded. So don't ask permission. This is the lesson one. Then lesson two, don't value ideas. So some people evaluate ideas very, very much. For example, Winklevoss brothers sued Mark Zuckerberg to stealing their ideas. But ideas suck. So the people claim idea matters in innovation, but in reality, it's not. So, for example, Ruby is an object-oriented scripting language. The key concept of Ruby programming language is being an object-oriented scripting language at the first hand. But everyone can think of that. think about creating an object-oriented scripting language in 20 years ago. For example, we had a Perl, and Perl is going to, back then Perl is version 4, and then they are going to, the people in the Perl community was working on the Perl 5, which has the object-oriented feature, and back then we had Python, which had object-oriented feature. So having an object-oriented programming language is, that's not the great idea. That's ordinary, boring ideas. So, and it only takes a minute to make up an idea. So, okay, if we had object-oriented scripting language, that would be good. Okay, but making it real is crucial. So it takes months or years to implement. So realize that. So mere idea matters not. So for example, the blogging system that only allows the messages less than 400 characters. Does that sound good idea or not? In 10 years ago? No? It's insane. It's insane. So if I were investor, so some young guy came to me and asked for the investment for the blogging system that every message is limited to less than 400 characters. 140 characters. It's insane. I wouldn't invest. No. But it became Twitter, and being less than being a shorter limiting to the shorter message is not crucial. But just because we have some kind of the mini blogging system back then, like a Instantica or something like that. So we have several rivals to Twitter back then in 2004, 7, I don't know, maybe. But only Twitter survived. So the very important things is the mere idea have no value, and the being concrete is very crucial, and adding ideas, features, and doing more things is not a good thing. Adding the ideas can ruin the product, like this. You cannot put it in a You can put it in a pocket, but it's supposed to be a pocket knife. No, you can't. So ideas with the implementation has no value. So details matters. So being an object-oriented scripting language is not enough. Being good, being great object-oriented scripting language is crucial for survival of Ruby programming language. But you cannot describe the detail in a word. So it can only accomplish through the long work of the development as an open source software. So working implementations matters, and concrete concept matters. So be concrete. And in addition, community matters. So yeah, I'm speaking for the open source community. So, but as the commercial products or the web services, so user communities matters also. And more importantly, the philosophy, design philosophy. Okay, everything has a design, its own design, API and UI and the software design, architecture, everything, language design, everything. So design has philosophy, and that philosophy matters very importantly. Okay, this is my second lesson. Okay, third lesson, never give up. Software lifespan is longer than you expected. So for simple apps, has more than 2 years of lifespan. And the web services is at least 5 years of lifespan. And frameworks has more than 10 years of lifespan. Okay, this year, the year 2014 is the 10-year anniversary of Ruby on Rails that changed the web programming, web development very crucial, very drastically. So the frameworks, many frameworks live longer than 10 years. And the languages live longer, even longer, 20 more years. Some software live very, very long and have higher viewpoint. So as a software creator, designer, engineers, we often focus on tomorrow or maybe next week. But sometimes we have to stop and think about a year later, 5 years later, or maybe 10 years later. So about the changing situation, the moving platforms. So changing situation is very important. So application, for example, the Ruby application domain has changed a lot. So the first, it was designed as a scripting language. So the primary target domain is scripting. But some year later, so the Ruby's target domain has gradually changed into web. So there are many people, especially after Rails, so many people consider Ruby as the web programming language, which is actually not. Or maybe some people consider Ruby as a sysadmin through Chef or Parrot. Or maybe some people start using Ruby in research computing in place of Python or R or MATLAB. Or maybe some people start using Ruby in embedding programming. So your target domain is changed gradually, so you have to adapt new things. So maybe platform can change, the multi-core is getting bigger, cloud is become mainstream, or tooling can be changed, so that we now have the RubyGem, Ruby on Rails, New Relic, Code Climate, which we didn't have in 10 years ago. So 10-something years ago, so the poor people made fun of us. So you don't have CPAN. We have the tons of CPAN libraries, which is very important for the life cycle of the programs. But 10 years later, we have Ruby gems, and the number of the registered gems in rubygem.org is surpassed the CPAN for a long time. So the situation can change. 10 years ago, it's kind of we couldn't I couldn't have hope to overcome Pro, and since CPAN has tens of thousands of the libraries, modules that registered in the repository. So I didn't think we would see a day that a number of the Ruby library and Ruby resource can surpass the Pro. But 10 years later, it became real. So then a few years ago, many people complained about the Ruby being slow. So Ruby is slower than Pro, Ruby is slower than Java or something like that. Okay, I know that, I knew that, I knew. But no one complains about the faster Ruby, so we are working on, and Ruby became much faster compared to the prior versions. But they still complain about being slow. So Ruby is slower than C, C++, or something like that. Okay. Okay, we always meet complaints. So you create software, your users, I'm sure your user will complain about that. And you create software, I'm sure your users will complain. But complaints are good. Complaints are good. Just because most people just leave with those complaints. Okay, it's unusable. You can just ignore that. Just go away. But when a complaints tells where to improve. So the people who complains is at least willing to use your product longer enough to make complaints, right? So this is very great customers. So complaints tell us where to improve. So improve that, improve them, so you can have better product. They indicate you have room to improve. So you may have a good idea, but the idea itself has no value. And then you may not be a genius programmer, but that's okay. Just don't give up. Cheer up. Keep moving forward. Step by step, move forward bit by bit. Be passionate what you do. But that's very important to being a great programmer. Be passionate. So, like Nakajima-san said before the prior session, and then never give up. You will win gradually if you don't stop working. This is the third lesson. Okay, fourth lesson. Mind the power of open source software. Open source software. The term open source software was created in 1998. The term itself is far younger than Ruby, younger than Rakuten company. The term was created in 1998 to distinguish from free software. It's kind of rephrasing that. Just because the free software are often confused as a free of charge. So it's not really good at the business. So they rephrase it. So the free software, what existed first. Or some people claim it a libelless software. Libelless is a French art, I think. Just because English is very poor human language, so the English speakers cannot distinguish the free of charge and the free as in freedom. So the French is better. So libelless software. Or maybe Japanese better, GU software. Or some people call it FLOSS, free, libelless, open source software, long. Anyway, so after all, they all value software freedom. So software freedom has four kinds. So it has the freedom to execute, freedom to study, freedom to modify, and the freedom to redistribute. The free of charge is only a fraction of the first freedom. So the freedom of software was defined by a person which had fought for freedom for the last 3 decades. Richard Stallman. The Richard Stallman is is this guy, and this guy is the guy who started everything about the free software, open source software, and actually the software behind the internet. So Stallman is my hero. So look at this guy's face, grinning, standing next to my hero. So this is that I received the free software award for achievement in free software development or something like that in 2011. So I was invited to Boston and to receive this the kilt pennant and then standing to take a photo with my hero. It was my glorious moment. And he changed the world. If I didn't create Ruby, the world with the Ruby is, okay, we have Python, okay. And if Linus Torvalds didn't create Linux, the world changed. But that's okay. We have FreeBSD. But if Richard Stallman didn't start a free software movement. So I'm sure we don't have free software, open source software. Imagine the world without free software. It's kind of like a nightmare. So every software is controlled by a big companies. I don't say the name, but companies start with them or something. In 1960s and early 1970s, so the software has no value in business. So they received the software free of charge with source code when we buy a computer. So the computer users share software and free of charge. They exchange softwares. So they change the operating systems, adding new feature. So when they feel when they felt that feature was neat, so they gave away the kind of the source code of the operating system to neighbors, fellow users. So, but in '78, I think, the Bill Gates wrote the open letter to hobbyists. So the software is very important, and the professional software has a very diligent and hard work to create software. So the hobbyists should not steal their software. So people have to pay for software. And since then, those world of software became gradually toward to business. The software is created by the company. The engineers behind the company create the software, and the mere users have to buy the software. So, and then it was same in all over the world. In MIT, where Richard Stallman worked back then, so the driver for the new printer didn't come with source code, so they are closed. So the people the hackers in MIT hacked their operating system, hacked their printer, so that you don't have to. You have the imagination to make it convenient. For example, the MIT hackers to ask for print. So then the operating system asks for the printer to print out the data. Then the operating system tool also ping the tool that unlock the door of the computer room. Then also ping the elevator to come to the floor. So if the hacker command the print, then the elevator is ready. Then he moved to the computer room. The lock is already unlocked by his own tool. But having the closed software systems, they couldn't hack any longer. So the one hacker, Richard Stallman, get upset so badly. So he was so upset, so he became a rebel against software business. And he became a fighter for software freedom in early 80s. So that's the reason he moved to the free as in freedom. So the Richard Stallman was known as the super programmer, super hacker in 70s, 80s, and the very early version of Emacs and GCC and a lot of GNU tools was written by himself. But he was so upset about losing software freedom, he just gave up his career as a programmer, so he became a fighter. He founded the Free Software Foundation. Then he gathered a huge amount of donation. he gave a presentation everywhere, so to teach people about the importance of the software freedom. So this software freedom. So it's kind of like engineer's paradise, and it's following the engineer's instinct. So you can be better with freedom. So I told you before that the innovation requires freedom. So innovation requires to be better programmer. So in the business field, so people often work under the policy of the power of secrecy. So keeping secret, keeping your source code as a secret, so has value. But in the internet age, the information has nature to spread. So in this present world, the power of disclosure is bigger than power of secrecy. So it's kind of like a new business model. So it's kind of implicit alliance. So it is called open source. So if you can stop it, so you must join it. So you cannot stop free, libre, open source software. And the internet isn't driven by flaws. Linux has controlled almost all the servers. So Apache is working as a web server, the major web server, and Nginx, which is open source as well, is also the second biggest. And the Ruby, PHP, Python, Perl is all of them are open source. And MySQL, PostgreSQL is open source. And Office software like open source org and LibreOffice is open source. And DNS and OpenSSL is based on open source software. And the browsers, Firefox and the Chromium, which is the base of the Google Chrome, is open source. So there's no choice to avoid open source software. So working in the software industry, working in the internet industry, so we have to rely on open source. So thanks LMS, so having the world with open source, making the world filled with free software. If he weren't there, if he weren't in this earth, so the world has different. The world was different, and the world is for worse than this world. And then after internet age and after open source software development has changed. The software development became internet-based and decentralized. So we can start some kind of social coding, like using GitHub. So the software system is different. So this world has been changed after the open source software. So you have to care about the power of open source. Then lesson 5 is mind the community. Open source is heavily dependent on open source. Community. Open source community is very crucial for survival of the open source software. So the only one people required to start open source software, but the community is very, very important for survival. So after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, so only one person cannot continue the work on the open source software. So we have to have a community. And the open source community is made by spontaneous volunteers. They're mostly driven by technical interest or maybe career pressure. And most successful open source software has a very attractive community, technologically and philosophically. So open source community is kind of like a shark. So like shark, open source community must move forward, otherwise it will die. So we need continuous progress to entertain and attract members. So we have to move forward. So if we stop progressing, the community will lose interest. The member of the community lose interest in, and they will go away, and start more interesting things. So moving forward over stability, choosing moving forward over stability, and the progress over cost. The changing software requires cost, just because every other software that relies on software need to be upgraded. For example, the Ruby on Rails sometimes has very huge incompatible modification. So version 2, version 3, version 4, so we have to adapt that change. So it's cost, I know that. But if the people behind the Rails community choose compatibility or stability over the progressive, so the business people will satisfy, but the very crucial technical members will go away. So that's very bad for Rails survival. If Rails choose that's kind of the strategy to value stability, I believe Rails won't survive for 10 years. So even in the enterprise systems that value stability and the continuity for a long time, the situation has been changing. So that's the mind community is the fifth lesson. The last one, the amateurism. So I present you these 5 lessons I learned from Ruby experiences. Don't ask for permission, beg for your forgiveness, and don't value ideas, never give up, mind the power of the open source software, and mind the community. And the software development has changed, as I explained. So it's now the people in the engineers in the open source industry is working on something which is very hard to predict or hard to estimate. It's kind of opposite of the prior work of the enterprise system. So we need to be flexible. And then we need to keep moving forward to create the new, interesting, tech-savvy products. So adapt the situation. And this is kind of like amateurism. So amateurs value entertaining over efficiency or cost, just because they're amateurs. So the amateur features don't count the cost of their fish rod or their boat or something like that. But the professional fishers care much about the cost of fuel, cost of a boat or something like that. So it's the difference of the amateur and the professional. But in the software industry, this kind of the amateur spirit is very important to create new things, especially that some kind of innovation, create innovation. So in software development, the great amateurs serve as ordinary professionals. And software, the world has been changed by amateurs, or software created by amateurs. Remember the Linux, which is maybe half of the world is relying on, is created by one university student in Finland. And Ruby, which is created by the professional programmer, but no assigned job. It's kind of the boring software engineers with amateurism created a language which gradually take over the web. So be amateurs. Don't act as a professional. Be amateurs. So that's a very crucial to create innovative, great software. In summary, From Ruby experience, I learned those lessons. And then be great amateurs, driven by technological interest. And then create great software to create great future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. If anyone has any question, please come up to the microphone. We can take a 2 or 3 questions. Matsumoto-san, do you have any question to them?
We have my question. Okay. Hello, and thank you very much for your great speech, great presentation. I want to ask somehow a little bit personal question. At the time when you were coming up, you have the idea of Ruby, something like Ruby when you were a high school student, and you wrote down on a notebook. And later, at the job, when you were bored, you had a little time to work more on it. Life is difficult. You have lots of things going on simultaneously. Your family, your job, your personal interest, your friend, your community, lots of things. When you were moving forward with Ruby, you were never afraid that you are putting lots of your times on something that may not ever be successful. Mm-hmm. How did you manage to, these things put a stress on somebody, put stress on engineers. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, I do one thing at a time in a short amount of time, like a 30 minutes or the 1 hour or something like that. So do one thing at a time is very important strategy I took. Actually, so at the first maybe 5-10 years, so Ruby was my hobby. So I didn't worry about the spending time just because there was some people create great things in their spare time, like create Empire State Building from matchsticks or something like that. So they spent a whole lot of time in their hobby. So it's kind of like that for me. Yeah. Next question.
So you've mentioned Ruby has become quite a bit faster. Do you see any interesting optimizations coming down the pipeline, or do you see Ruby evolving in a different direction?
Well, we are gradually thinking about the new version of Ruby. New major version of Ruby named Ruby 3.0, and we are thinking about adding JIT, the just-in-time compiler, to the virtual machine, and we also adding some kind of concurrency support of taking care of a multi-core environment. But we still have vague ideas yet, especially for concurrent programming.
Okay, thank you very much for your great presentation. Everyone, please give him a big round of applause. Thank you.